Hello, I'm Miss Lau, a primary school math and science tutor at the Science Academy. If you are a parent with a child taking PSLE this year, you need to watch this. In the recent Committee of Supply debate, Minister Desmond Lee shared this math question, and many adults went, "That's way too easy." But this question actually shows how PSLE math questions are structured. So PSLE math questions are usually structured with a scaffolding method, whereby the first part would check on the student's understanding and also build upon that understanding, and the second part would connect everything together. Let's take this question as an example. In this question, we've got two containers, and Ray poured 1/5 of the water from X into Y, and it fills it to the top without overflowing. So how much water was there in X at first? The first thing to do is to find out then how much water is needed to fill Y to the top. This part then checks on the student's understanding on whether they can find out the volume of this empty section above, which would then just be the length and the breadth multiplied the height of only this section. Next, students need to recognize that this volume is the same as 1/5 of the water from X. So therefore, to find how much water there was in X at first, you just need to take this as 1/5 and find the whole. So this question tests a few things. First of all, a language understanding on whether students understand that 1/5 of the water from X was used to fill this empty space in Y. And the second thing that this question tests would be a recall and application of the formula to find volume. In this case, students need to identify the length, the breadth, and the height of the relevant segment only. Lastly, students need to understand how to do their fractions. So understand that 1/5 is just one part of 5, and to find how much water there was at first, they would then need to find a whole. Now let's take a look at part B. In part B, Ray poured all the water from Y into X. So let's just find out how much water there is in Y first. Right now, Y is completely full, so therefore just find the total volume of Y, which would be the length multiplied by breadth multiplied by the height. Next, students need to understand that water overflowed, which means that not all the water could fit into the empty space above X. So let's then consider how much water could X contain. So this is the amount of water that was poured into X and did not overflow. Now remember, X had 1/5 of its water poured out before. So therefore, to find how much water there was in X now, you will need to take 4/5 of the amount of water you had in X at first. Alternatively, you could also just take 1/5 and multiply it by 4. Now, after finding the volume of water added to X and the volume of water in X, which both test on the concepts of recalling and applying the formula for volume, students next need to go through a few steps of logical thinking. So let's consider all the information that we have now. First, we know the volume of water in X, which has been calculated to 5760 cubic centimeters. We also know that the total volume of water that was poured into X was 3,960 cubic centimeters, but 120 cubic centimeters of water overflowed. So this 120, we do not add it in. Instead, we only find how much water could fit into X, which would be 3,840. With that, we are now able to find the total volume of container X. Now students then need to apply again their understanding of volume, which is that volume is also base area multiplied by its height. With that, we can find the base area of X. And we now finally can find the height of X. And that is how you solve this question. So you can see PSLE questions are structured. First of all, by testing your understanding of what is volume, and as well as understanding of fractions. Only after that do they then combine these two concepts with a step of logical thinking to understand that the amount of water left in X is not the full amount calculated as above, but rather only 4/5. And next, a logical thinking step to remove away the amount of water that overflowed. So, PSLE questions are usually structured in this manner, where part A tests on concepts and part B brings everything together and builds upon all these concepts. Now, in comparison, let's consider a PSLE question that was truly challenging to students. This question came out in the 2021 PSLE Math Paper. So let's see what this question says. Helen and Ivan had the same total number of coins. So the first thing we can do is to draw a visual representation or a model. So since they have the same total of coins, we would then draw boxes that are of the same width and the same length, with a label to identify Helen and Ivan. Next, Helen has a number of 50-cent coins. We don't know how much, but we know she has 64 20-cent coins. So I would draw what information I know first, which is that she has 64 20-cent coins. So this being 64, and these are 20-cent coins. Next, I know the remaining of this would thus be her 50-cent coins. Now let's go to the next information that's given to us, which is that this total mass is going to be 1.134 kilograms. But kilograms, coins, different things. So let's put that aside first. Next, Ivan has a number of 50-cent coins and 104 20-cent coins. So again, let's draw what we have read first. We know that Ivan is 104, meaning in comparison to Helen's 64, Ivan would have more. Of which these are Ivan's 20-cent coins, and these are Ivan's 50-cent coins. And since this is 64, therefore, Ivan has 40 more 20-cent coins and Helen has 40 more 50-cent coins. Now this question is challenging because it has students on their observation skills as well as their logical thinking skills to identify that they have the same number of coins, but they are in different value. So if students are not able to see the difference in value, then they will be stuck at this question and they might not be able to move on. Because in the first part, they're asking for who has more money, meaning we're looking at the value of the coins. Now to solve this, students need to recognize that these 64 20-cent coins are the same and they do not cause a difference in value. These amount here of 50-cent coins are also the same number of coins, same value. So therefore, they also do not cause a difference in amount of money. So therefore, the only difference comes in these 40 coins over here, where Ivan has 40 20-cent coins and Helen has 20 50-cent coins. So the first part of the working is to show the understanding in the difference in number of coins here, which would be 104 minus 64, giving you 40 coins difference. Now therefore, find the value of these 40 coins. For Helen, the 40 coins would be all 50 cents, which would give a value of $8. And for Ivan, the 40 coins are all 20 cents, which would give a value of $2. So therefore, the amount difference would thus be 8 minus 2, giving you an answer of $6. And thus, Helen has more money in coins, and it is $6 more. Now in part B, this then also builds upon our logical thinking process that the only difference in anything, whether it's the value of the coins or whether it's the mass of the coins, comes from these 40 coins here that are different in value. Because as mentioned, these 20-cent coins here, the 64 20-cent coins here are the same, so they do not cause any difference in value. And this amount of 50-cent coins here are also the same, so they also do not cause any difference in value. Therefore, when I know that each 50-cent coin is 2.7 grams heavier than each 20-cent coin, I can then find the mass of these 40 coins to help me find then the mass of Ivan's coins. So let's think about it. If Helen has 40 coins here, they are all 50 cents, and Ivan has 40 coins here, they are all 20 cents, that means these 40 coins of Helen will then be 2.7 grams heavier each than the 40 20-cent coins of Ivan. So therefore, Helen's coins will then be heavier by an amount of 40 coins, with each coin being 2.7 grams heavier. This gives 108 grams of mass difference. Now, I know the total mass of Helen's coins is 1.134. So therefore, the total mass of Ivan's coins will be lighter, and it will be lighter by 108 grams. To make this simpler, change your kg to grams, and you would get a final answer of 1026 grams. But the question is asking for this in kilograms, so therefore convert this to kilograms. And you have your final answer of 1.026 kilograms. So like I mentioned, this question is a little bit more challenging because it has quite a number of concepts. The first will be a logical reasoning to identify and observe that the difference in value comes from the difference in value of only these 40 coins. So therefore, our entire question is based on understanding and observing these 40 coin differences. The first one is a difference in value, understanding that 40 50-cent coins and 40 20-cent coins have different values, and as well as an understanding of difference in mass, again, comes only from these 40 coins. So if students are not able to make that logical reasoning, it is thus going to be very challenging for them to attempt this question. And another concept that this question tests would be on the conversion from grams to kilograms and testing on their multiplication or division by 1,000. So as you can see, PSLE questions are not all that difficult. It merely follows a simple structure of, first of all, checking your understanding. Second, a strong emphasis on logical reasoning. And lastly, a challenge comes in then applying all these concepts and logical reasoning together. So as a parent preparing your child for PSLE, how do you think your child would find this? Let us know in the comments. Curious Minds Everyday Discoveries. See you next time!